Got
I
a
have a
couple
question.
minutes.
I'll throw a question in there. So Nicole was talking and Andrew was talking about wholesaling. So, this may help Andrew specifically or anybody else that wants to wholesale. So long time ago, we used to buy some properties, very few, from wholesalers when I was doing flips. You've been doing it for quite a while. How do you know that the person, do you get a deposit from the person saying your fee is 10,000, I need 2,000 up front, whether you buy it or not, just to get in the game, and then if you close, you owe me the other 8? Or how does that process work to make sure you're not just wasting your time with somebody, but you're also not walking away with all their money and they can't close?
Yeah, we'll usually take some kind of assignment fee. You have to have some skin in the game for, just upfront. And so most of the time they'll pay our EMD. So then we just assign it and the deposit comes in through them. It's interesting Andrew brought that up because we actually have a fourplex or a quad that is actually in Gary, Indiana. So we're kind of interested in it. That would be our first delve into multifamily. But so we were, thinking we would just wholesale it. I'm not sure if the numbers quite make sense, but or help the person sell it. It's a known person to us, so it's we would just have the contract that we would bring the buyer. So, and in Andrew's case, that's something like you with relationships. If you did come across the deal and then you brought that to me, I wouldn't necessarily need a contract, but then we would just come to an agreement with a handshake. I know that's not always done in business, but once we get to trust people, it would just be, hey, you bring us a deal and we'll close, and you come to that agreement with what fee they want out of it. So that might be one way to get around the LOI issue, Nicole, was because I wouldn't want to be bound by somebody else's contract either.
Yeah,
With multifamily.
that's
Completely
great.
understand. Thank you as well.
I guess, are we right about 7:30? So everybody's here that's going to be here. So my name's Jane. Irwin. Sharon is out tonight. She's actually in Maryland. So was going to take care of some properties and some business and family stuff up there. So I'll do the best I can. She usually does the slides and all that other stuff. I don't have any slides, and typically I don't use them anyway. We're more practitioners. We're usually just out there doing stuff. So plus people pay more attention if you're speaking and not taking pictures of slides, I guess, because that's what I usually do. Anyway, so tonight we're just going to talk a little bit real quick on contractors. Everybody knows that you make your money when you buy the property, but you make your profits and you keep your money when you have a really good contractor. So we've had a lot of good deals and they've went way sideways. I like to talk from our mistakes as well. Everything's not always rosy, which everybody portrays it, it is, but so some of our best deals have went sideways because of the contractor not knowing different things. There's all different kind of contractors. You can have a general contractor, roofers, plumbers, HVAC, electricians, flooring. You can have a project manager. And, first off, you have to find them. And I'll just go over a couple quick ways that you can find them. We like referrals the best from other investors, basically because they've done good work for them and, they're going to recommend them. If somebody has a good contractor, they're probably not going to give them to you because they want to keep them. So they might give you, the pretty good ones, but they're not going to give you their ace guy. Just some other quick ways: Facebook, Angie's List, going to Home Depot. They used to have a list. I don't think they do that. Just seeing trucks and things going down the road. And then one of our favorite ways is also the code officers. So either the office with the workers in there, you can say, hey, who are the people that don't give you a bunch of trouble and you're not always at their house with bad permits and they do work the right way. That's a good way to find the good contractors. And then once you get a bunch of them, so you have a project and you get a bunch of them, then you're going to pick 3 or 4. And then we always initially have a phone conversation. So, and that's going to be the time that we ask about their license. In Florida, it's myfloridalicense.com down here. And I used to know it up in Maryland, DHSL something. I can't remember what it is up there, but so every state, county, whatever, they're going to have a, place where you can look up the license. So you want to do that. And on the phone conversation, you're going to ask them about it. And then some of the other stuff we ask on the phone is what insurance they have. So if they have vehicle insurance, workman's comp is a big one. And, just business insurance, and because you don't want to be caught in their lawsuit and their nonsense. And then another question we always ask, and sometimes we ask it a couple different ways, is how they feel about permits. So you can ask it as, hey, how do you feel about permits? That way, or you can say, hey, how do you feel about doing work on a Saturday when the inspectors aren't out? And a lot of times we'll ask it that way, especially, in Sarasota here, there's, that just roof HVAC, there's, and they're pretty strict on it. So if I say to the guy, hey, how do you feel about coming Sunday night to put in an air conditioner? If he's okay with that, that might not be my guy because I want him to do the things the right way. It just depends. And some investors are okay with doing stuff with no permits and doing all that kind of stuff. It just depends on if you're if you want to deal with the fines and the consequences and the no work order and all that stuff. We tend to want permitted work done with permits. So we kind of ask that a couple different ways to get that. And then ask for referrals from people. Say who's going to refer you, get their referrals. And a lot of people get the referrals, but then they never call. Like they get them and they're like, oh, they gave me 3 right away, but they never call to see if they would actually refer them. So make sure you get them and then do the follow-up for it. And then ask what current projects they're working on. And the reason we do that is so we can drive by and take a look. If they're working and they give you 3 addresses that they're currently doing, or one that they're working on now, and you go by and there's trash all over the place, and it just looks like a mess. That's not the guy I want, because I don't want the code violation guys coming down and taking a look and saying, well, they're leaving trash, so they're probably doing a bunch of other things wrong too. We ask them about any current lawsuits, or if they've been sued, how that goes. And then we also ask them about, that goes back to the permits. So that, and how they feel about, paperwork in general. Like, are they okay with our scope of work? Do they have a scope of work? A lot of the guys that if they don't have paperwork, they're a mess to deal with, because you can't, it's like they forgot what they did, or they don't get the things because they don't even do the paperwork. So if they're not keeping track of their paperwork, then, the billing's off, and it's just like a whole bunch of different stuff that is just problems later that we found. And then, something else you have to ask them is what type of house that they do. And that's for a couple of reasons. If you have a guy that is doing, a home flips, and you want a rent rehab, that's, he's going to be charging you a lot more than you want to pay, and vice versa. And ask me how I know. We had a rent guy, and, he told us, he assured us he could step up to do a flip. It didn't have to be, $1 million house flip, but we needed a lot nicer. And, it was on his dime, but we kept basically saying, you got to do it again. You got to do it again. You got to do it again. And although it was his dime, it was holding us up. So you got to paint it again. That's a couple days. You got to paint it again. It's a couple days. So you don't want your rent guy doing a flip, and you don't want your flipper doing rents. So that's a good question to ask, just to kind of say, hey, you know where to go for that. And then just like see if they're going to be a general contractor, and how much of the work are they going to do, or are they just going to sub everything out and upcharge you 10% or 15%? I don't even know what the going rate is. Like, you don't want your general contractor. You could hire a project manager for that, or you could oversee it yourself. So if it's just a GC coming in there and not doing any work, and then you also want to know about his subcontractors for the work he is gonna put out. So like if, you know, he's gonna subcontract out the roof, you want to make sure that the roofer's okay. So we always talk to them about that and how to get, you know, get their list of their names and kind of check those companies out too. And then how much of a deposit does he expect, or, you know, ask him how he bills. And if he's somebody that is like, hey, I need all the money up front, that's not your guy. If he can't like take the first couple weeks, you know, we'll give him a little bit of money, but if he can't handle the first couple weeks of paying his guys, getting a dumpster, getting some materials, then he's probably, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul. So you don't want your house to suffer because he's taking your money and he's putting it on somebody else's job. And then when he, you know, when things go south on that job, guess who's shit out of luck? You are, because he's already spent your money and now he's going to want more. So just, you know, you don't want that to happen either. So just ask him how he expects to get paid. And, you know, and then on that initial phone conversation, you know, we're still at the phone conversation. We're just going to explain how we work. And it's going to be scope of work, draws, you know, and because we do a lot of things virtually, you know, we depend on, either FaceTime or, you know, videos, not pictures, not so much anymore, just because we got burnt once, that was enough. So, you know, basically he's got to go around the house and take videos of the house and show them back to us to get that draw released. Or we'll have, you know, a lot of times we have property managers or we have people in the area. So we'll actually have them also go do that. So we just have to explain a little bit of how we work. And then after you get that initial phone conversation, you know, that's kind of like where we get into our past profession, and it's research, research, research. Like we are digging into them every which kind of way. You know, so legally you want to make sure they don't have any lawsuits pending or, you know, other issues with other, you can see that, I guess that's still an SStat up there. We do background checks. You know, we even go as far as in the court system to see if they have any driving issues. Ask me how I know, because you don't want your guy to get locked up for driving while suspended with all your materials on his truck to go to a tow yard to get stolen. You don't want a guy with a lot of domestics because you don't want the girlfriend to steal all the tools or, you know, throw them out of the house or whatever else happens with all that. So, you know, those are things that are kind of in the back of our mind, and we'll ask them to explain, you know, if we see a driving suspended or a lot of tickets, we'll ask them about that, you know, and make them, you know, if it's a good contractor, we'll just make them go get a copy of their driver's license saying that they're valid now. If we see a lot of the that stuff, and then, you know, check their licenses, just make sure they're valid. They can give you a license number, but it still has to be valid and you know, good with that. And then you know, we always just check the business name with Better Business Bureau and some of the other ones. So that's just, you know, a lot of how we just get to the contractor. And then, you know, that's basically, you've narrowed it down to 3 or 4 guys, and then you'll kind of come out and be like, okay, now you narrowed it down. And then, you know, the next step is just bringing them out to the property. And that is always, you know, a good sign for us, is if they're on time, if they don't show up and they're not, as long as they're sober. And yes, we had one contractor late, and that was our very first flip, like very first one. So we were, you know, we were directed by our coach there to do the scope of work and get them out there. And we had 3 or 4 guys coming out, and the first one late was drunk. You know, and that's how he showed up. So right away, he's, you know, that's one. That's why you kind of have to pick 3 or 4, because you know, one's going to be late, you know, and if they're late, they don't respect your time, then they're going to be late to the job. They're going to be late getting their stuff done. So, you know, a lot of times we have a good gut feel too. So, you know, most people, you get that feeling if you're going to work good together, or, you know, if you're not feeling it too much. You know, as some people are just, I guess, right away, they come off as heavy handed. So that's not the contractor that we're going to want either. you know, we were helping a friend of ours and down here in Sarasota, and the contractor actually told her not to bring any investors to the house because he felt like he was being micromanaged. So, you know, yeah, it's my project, so I am going to micromanage you if I want to, and I'll show up at my property when I want to. So you'll kind of get a feel for people and go with that. And then once you know, that's basically how we vet them. And then we'll come down to a couple of them, and then, you know, we usually pick them from there, and that's pretty much. And then from there, you know, just example, the one guy that we have in Indiana, really good contractor. We stumbled onto him. It wasn't any craziness. It was just he was working on a house down the street. A friend of ours saw him, gave us his number, and we started him out with just a real small job, and it was just basically, you know, just stuff anybody could have did or whatever. But we started him out small. He did a good job. His paperwork was in order. You know, he has invoices. It was to a business. You know, that's just another quick thing that we don't want to write a personal check, right? You kind of want to write it out to a business. So if they're just, oh, you know, or pay me in cash, we don't like to do that. I mean, there's just things that they're not running it like a business, and you want your contractor to run it like a business. You don't want it just to be, you know, kind of hodgepodge. Hey, I'll be over to do your floors and give me $1,000. It just depends how you want to run things. I mean, sometimes we will just pay, you know, cash or whatever if it's just a quick little thing, but for the bigger flips and your nice rentals, that's how we basically deal with things. So that's pretty much how we vet them, and then you just got to keep an eye on them and keep the thumb down. So that was a quick 15 minutes.
That was great.
Any questions?
That was very informative, Jane. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew.
I do have a quick question. You know, we're primarily wholesaling right now, and that's our intention for a good little while looking forward. But our long-term vision, at least as it stands now, is to develop a network via wholesaling, because you only become a good wholesaler by creating good relationships that last. And as we accumulate cash, we'll eventually start getting into flipping. Primarily, though, our focus would only be in Baltimore City, because kind of the whole vision is really to focus on inner city and try to reinvent, I guess Baltimore specifically. But then if we can perfect that market, then we would try to replicate it in other inner cities. But nonetheless, right now we only do wholesaling. And in looking forward to contracting, a lot of the insights you just gave make hiring a contractor sound like a big, heavy lift. It sounds pretty scary. It sounds like there's a lot of bad experiences. Would you say that out of 10 contractor hires, how many would you say, or potential hires, if you upload a listing for a job on Craigslist, out of those 10 inquiries, would you say what percentage of them are usually straight shooters and good hires versus those that aren't?
So I would say Craigslist, we've had good luck with, and sometimes Craigslist is one we use for the light lifting, like a clean out, or just board up a window or something like that when we're out of state. So we've had really good luck with that. We've had pretty good luck with referrals. We've gotten good, and we got really lucky in Indiana. Like there wasn't, like he just, I can't talk enough about him. That was just luck all the way around. And that could have went south because, we weren't there. And it was our first house that we were, and that was a rental. And he's also a anomaly because he's a rent guy. He can do a really good rental for cheap, but he can do a really nice flip. So we've kind of got lucky in that vein too. Facebook, not so much. We get a lot of people that don't show up, or, they don't do what they say they're gonna do. So referrals, and then the code violation guys, they've given us some good people. But, again, network, it goes back to the referrals, and I think we've gotten most lucky with them. But Craigslist's not bad, especially for like day labor, or, just doing some of the light lifting stuff. You get lucky. And Andrew, I would say with wholesaling, and probably if we had to rewind, I would have stayed in the deal. Like, you can stay in the deal different ways. So if you're wholesaling a house and I'm the flipper, you can just kind of say, hey, I want to stay in the deal. I'll give you, 90%, but I get 10% equity, or a rental. It's like I get some equity, or, for less on the price wise, I want to stay in the deal, and then, I'll get 20% of the sale net profit. That way you're kind of staying in the flip, and you're not just wholesaling. And if I had to do it over again, we would have did that, because we've wholesaled a ton of nice houses that we should have stayed in the deal instead of just picking up, 5,000-10,000.
That's extremely informative. Thank you.
You bet.
How would you approach that if the investors an intention with the property was to keep it and rent it out?
It's the same way. Just, you could get part of the rents, or, when they sell it down the line, most investors keep them for 5 years and sell. A lot of them do. Or when they refi out, you can stay in with the equity, or just, whatever,
Yeah.
10% of the rents every month. I mean, you can make any deal how you want to structure it. It just depends if they want to. A lot of them won't. But if you start building relationships with those people you're wholesaling to, then you just, throw that in there and say, hey, I kind of want to start building my portfolio, and can I get in on this? And then, do a JV, or however you work that.
Wow, thank you. That's a huge nugget, Jane. Thank you.
Sure, I bet. Anybody else with any questions or horror stories, or do you want to hear some horror stories, or?
I've got a couple of questions, but I want to wait and let everybody else ask first.
I think one of our biggest mistakes too was on the scope of work. We have a pretty solid scope of work, but we didn't necessarily follow it to a T. So when, like, we have a date in there that, and we let the contractor pick it. So our scope of work says this project will be complete on such and such a date, and we let them pick it. And then usually we'll actually add 2 weeks to it. So they say we'll be done on May 1st. We'll add till May 15th, and then for every day that they don't complete it, we have a fine, as you will. So we take that $75 or $50 or whatever it is. We'll take that off of them, because now they're costing us money by not completing it on the time that they said they would. I mean, that's with, if there's unforeseen stuff that we didn't see, but if it's just them not showing up, or, they're too busy working on somebody else's house and they didn't get to our house, and that's a problem. So a lot of times we were a little lax with that, where, in hindsight, we should have just held them to the fire, and, kind of said, we're taking that off. But we were kind of too nice and said, oh, okay, well, I understand, or the truck broke down, or the girlfriend kicked them out, or, the guys didn't show up. And that's been a big one down here. Is just people not showing up, hard time finding people to work, all that kind of stuff. So, we've actually built in probably a month extra, allowing for those kind of things.
So I have a quick question. So when
Yes, ma'am.
you are getting a contractor, do you have them add you to their insurance and do you make sure they have insurance and workers' comp and that? How do you handle that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we make sure they have it, and then obviously we have all our insurance, and then yes, we can be added to it. So yeah.
Do you ask for, I mean, you can ask somebody if they've got workman's comp and they tell you yes, but you ask them for proof,
Oh
something.
yeah, we make sure I think that's like one of the biggest things, even jobs or anything like, or, if we sell a house on a lease option, I know a lot of people that they get all those referrals, but they never call them. So, or they never call, and, ask me how I know. I was one of those people that, that came back to bite us with a lease option. Everything looked good on paper, and, we took the shortcut because we wanted to fill the house. He actually didn't work where he said he worked, and he was fired like 3 weeks ago. He was still working, and it's turned out okay, but he was in the middle of a divorce, lost his job, and didn't want to tell us. So the wife was a referral, and she was on, he tried to put her on the application, and just other stuff that like we didn't necessarily thing. And it's the same with contractors, James, if you give me a contractor and say, hey, this is a good guy, and then he gives me 2 other referrals, I mean, he might have been okay for you a couple years ago, but his most recent work, he's gotten shoddy, or he got locked up, or he doesn't show up, or life happens to a lot of people. So what was a good contractor 2 years ago, and we've seen it happen where we've had a good contractor and they do everything right, 1, 2, 3 houses, and then that 4th one they start getting lazy or late, and then the 5th one's worse, and before you know it, your last project with them goes south in a hurry. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just making those calls, making sure a lot of people just get the license number and say, oh, he's got a license, but they didn't check to see it was suspended, or different things. Same as the LLC, it's, you might have one and but it might be inactive. So then that doesn't really help you. Anybody else? Man, everybody's cameras are off. Everybody must be in their pajamas already or something.
Hello, this is Marissa again.
Hello, Marissa. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is so much information. Thank you very much for it. And I guess because it's so much information, will this be up, James, in the YouTube channel?
Yep.
Is-
So what we'll do is
Okay.
the VA will edit them tomorrow, and then Thursday she'll actually post them on YouTube, and then you'll
Okay.
get an email about what next week's Teaching Tuesday is about. And towards the
Okay.
bottom, there'll be a link for the playlist for all the Teaching Tuesdays.
Okay, good. And actually my other question was really not for you all. Andrew, you are a wholesaler in this area, Baltimore? Is it Andrew Baker?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I wanted to see if I could link up with you.
Yeah, for
Just-
sure. I'll
Okay.
shoot a DM or a direct message in this in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
See, we're already on here making deals.
There you go.
I
Love
like
that.
it.
Have you ever had a contractor ask you to buy the materials and then they'll use them?
Yes, we have, and yeah, I've heard different things about that. We have bought them. Some people are adamant, don't buy them, that you can be sued because then they're working for you.
Right.
So it's different things, but yeah, we have bought supplies.
Yeah, I've heard that second part about, hey, I think Nicole was with me at a class we took where she mentioned someone had bought all the roofing material for them. The guy fell off the roof and got killed, and they got sued for like, I don't know, something ridiculous, like $5 million or something like that. And they got held up in court. It's like, you bought the material, therefore you are a part of the process. You're not just, standing aside. So yeah, I guess maybe not a good idea, but whatever
Yeah.
works. for
I was
everybody.
I was in that same class, and I've talked to other people that that have they're very adamant that they can buy that. It's still the contractors.
Right.
And the way we have the scope of work usually is just it's based on I guess either way, how are you going to break it down to materials or what they're actually doing? So,
Mhm.
um,
I think if you look at what makes somebody a employee versus what makes somebody a 1099, a contractor, and follow as many of those rules for what makes somebody a contractor as you can, then at least you stack the deck in your favor. Because if you provide the materials, that is something that tends to make people think it's an employee. But there are several other criteria as well that defines a contractor from an employee. And if you make sure that the other items are contractor, not employee, then I think you probably have a pretty good chance of skating, because it's a preponderance of evidence, the preponderance of what it looks like is how it's going to go down. So I suspect part of it's in your scope of work, parts of it's in your contract with them and how you define them, etc. But
right. And a lot of times it's just, I mean, we're always learning as we go. So a lot of times it's like something happens and I'll just give you another example. We bought a house in Mobile, Alabama, and it had some roof issues, and we got a guy off of Craigslist, and it wasn't like we just wanted him to tarp the roof. So I actually did the Cash App or whatever for him to get the tarp, and this local guys, and then afterwards he sent a message, and luckily they never came back and sued us, and he didn't fall off the roof, but he got I forget what happened. It was just like a minor injury where he got cut or whatever. And then afterwards I'm thinking, God, what did I do? Because the same thing, if he fell off the roof, now I've paid for the materials, and it's just like a handyman guy, and whatever. And then I put myself in a bad situation. So it's kind of like we learn from the things that we have done, and then we don't do them again. And then we try to tell other people not to do those things. And then that way they don't even have to stay up for 2 weeks and worry about it if he's going to sue you or not. So that's kind of how we do things.
well, you guys do things really well. You're very successful. So, it's kind of every deal I do, I learn something. So, I mean, there's always more to learn, right?
Yeah, always. I mean, we were at a meeting earlier today. I went to a meeting at 8 o'clock this morning about some creative financing stuff. And so you're always learning. And as long as you don't repeat the same mistakes, you're better off. I mean, Mobile was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And trust me, I've never done that again. I've never thought about doing it again. And, you kind of learn from your mistakes. Some people don't get off the sofa to even make a mistake. So
Right.
we just, we try to go do the best we can, learn as much as we can, and stay protected. And I guess that's a good thing about these calls and the academy, just trying to learn from other people and pick stuff up.
So I think you and Nicole have the same mindset. I think it's like you learn a little bit, you go out and do a little bit. You learn a little bit, you go out and do a little bit. And I think some people, and I used to be one of those people, would be just like, I got to know everything because it's got to be perfect the first time I go out and stuff like that. And that doesn't work because then you never do anything, So kudos to you guys for kind of setting the pace and setting the example for actually doing that.
Yeah, we know a lot of people that started the same time we did. And multifamily is something we're going to get into here shortly. But we haven't delved into that. But we took your class like back in probably 2017 when we didn't know anything. So you were like way over our head. But like now a lot of it makes sense. A lot of it we just haven't really delved into it. But you still have to go in there and jump into things and not just kind of sit back. People in 2016 when we came in, they still haven't done one deal. So like think of how far ahead they would have just taken, little baby steps to do something.
Yep. Absolutely.
So Jane, 2 questions for you.
Yes,
So So do you have a very specific system when you go into a house, whether it be in person or virtually, to develop your scope and, to kind of break down pricing? And with that, also, when you do out of state things, when you don't see it at all, how do you develop the scope, and who do you get to develop that scope? Especially if you have no relationship with anybody, they're just sort of blind.
Yeah, most of the so Indiana is the only so Gary, Indiana is the only place that we've actually done like a full rehab flip scope of work. And it's just because we trust him. So
Yeah.
if that was a different person, we wouldn't. We've done some light rehabs because a lot of the houses we get on auction. So they're not in the best shape. Hudson and Marshall, we've gotten some pretty good houses. So then we just, I guess we just depend on what we see from the video. So we have very specific things we look for on the video. And then when we lease option a house, we do a very light rehab. We always protect the integrity of the house. And then, we're just kind of dependent on getting those 3 quotes and, getting 3 contractors. And then a lot of that is just, and we don't have a system. We're just probably now starting to think about like we need some systems and different things. We just, we do scopes of work and all that just from the videos and our contractors that we can see.
So you don't have a
I've
very
done-
specific like price set or anything like that for like when you go in and you go into the dining room and you see like, and you're into, you're like getting really granular with it. You don't do that.
Not really, only in Indiana, or if we're here in Florida. And the price has changed, so it's like, Indiana's way different. We think so much of our Maryland contractor that he's now down here. So we're going to start him, and right away when he came, like he picked up some other work from other investors, because we don't have a current rehab going, and he basically underpriced himself, because of the prices in Maryland, which I would have thought would have been more than here. I mean, some of the prices in Georgia, like a couple of years ago, were like, I would look at a house and it was a full gut, whatever. And up in Maryland, that would have been 80 to 100,000. And down in Georgia, it was, they're like, oh, 35. And I'm like, that guy's lying. He's making that stuff up. There's going to be change orders all over the place. But no, that was just the going rate. So you do have to be, cognizant of the pricing and where you are and how the prices are. Now, Indiana's a little bit cheaper, and I'm so familiar with his prices now. He basically does the scope of work. We look over it to make sure it's what we want done. And we even let him experiment a little bit. So he kind of every once in a while, he did the black cabinets and the black doors before that became a thing. So, we did a couple flips with him where we let him experiment, and turned out really well.
Cool. Awesome.
So a couple things, let me jump in here for just a sec. Couple things that I've done in the past, because I do a lot of stuff, not at home. And so, and I am not nearly as good as Jane and Sharon at kind of estimating repairs. So I will look to find maybe a code inspector in a county that's next to the one where my house is, and see if they'd like to make a little extra money by going and looking to see what needs to be done. And the other thing is I found very helpful general contractors who are retired or getting ready to retire, and just hire them to go look at the house and tell me what needs to be done, or more specifically to apartments and small multifamilies. So both of those are pretty good, and they're also pretty good about knowing what the costs are right in that area. And those have worked pretty well for me, frankly.
Code inspectors really can be your best friends for a lot of different reasons. For wholesalers, they'll they can give you excellent leads because it's a pain in the ass house that they have that they're tired of going there. So when we were in Maryland, we had a Harford County code inspector guy was feeding us leads, and then again to get the contractor, because they know who does the shoddy work. And you also don't want to make them mad, because we've seen investor make them mad, and then he was just, he was relentless with that property, that, because they got into a little shouting match there, but then the inspector was just always back at the house, made him rip the walls out. And so they're your friend, and be nice to them. Take them coffee and donuts. Something. And Jason, thank you for having your camera on. Nice to not look at blank screens. And Andrew too.
I actually am in my pajamas, so that's my my excuse for for my camera being off.
Yeah, but you did have it on. Well, that's fine if everybody's in their pajamas. It's Zoom, right?
I'm wearing pajama bottoms. I just have something nice on top.
See, right?
Hey, how you
Oh,
doing?
thank you,
Jane.
Marissa. I appreciate it. Hi.
So Jane, how would you say in the past 2 years-ish has your business changed? Since COVID, since things have changed, since bank finances completely changed, how has your deal flow changed, the sources of your deals, and just sort of what you're doing with your deals?
We so during COVID, we actually picked up some of the leftover foreclosures, like Hudson and Marshall and HUD. And that was a big way that we got all our properties, the HUD Home Store and Hudson and Marshall. That was probably 75 to 80% of our deals. So that has been a shift. But at the same time, we also went through the portfolio and sold stuff because it was a good time to sell.
Yeah.
So now we're just we're starting to replenish. We just did a mailing campaign, and I don't know if it's oversaturation or what, but we haven't got a lot of response from, or a bad list. Not sure which that is. Because we're always trying different things. Like this month, we're trying Freedom Soft, just a different software that popped up, and so we're trying that list just for the week in the CRM to see how that works. That's the list. It's not doing that great, but Liberty Leads was another one that we tried that, and we picked up a subject too. And I think we're more excited now because I think the creative financing is going to come into play. I'm already seeing it with we'll make an offer, and I'll just make an offer on creative financing through a realtor, and we've had a couple where they said no, they just want cash. And then like 3-4 weeks later, they're circling back and saying, well, what were you thinking? So I really think that's going to come into play with, days on market and different things. Now we're in Sarasota, so they're still silly here with their pricing, and, people overpaying for things. And that was our biggest challenge, because we won't overpay. Like we stick to our numbers. Everybody else was getting deals, and because they could just pay whatever and sell it for whatever, days on market, none, bidding war, all that stuff. We just wouldn't overpay. Now we do know several people that got stuck with stuff that they're going to have to figure out how to get out of. We've helped a couple of them just wholesale them away or get rid of them, but a lot of people got stuck with some big dollar houses that $1 million houses that they thought they were just going to flip and live in la la land for the next year.
So you're actively marketing and potentially buying in your area, Sarasota, or in and around that area.
It's funny. We love doing the virtual stuff, so we do that with and our price point there is probably under 100,000, but it is nice to kind of look around and be able to drive. We had 2 flips here in Sarasota. We took our rentals and we just flipped them. Just because the market was really good. The one tenant had passed away from COVID, and the other one didn't want to pay, and so she got evicted. And then we just decided to flip them, just because the market was so good. So, but it was nice just to be able to drive and check on them every day, and or drive past, or go in. I took the dog in a couple and made some videos. So just fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
That if it's in Gary, Indiana, we're not necessarily able to do that, or some of the other places.
Well, excellent. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for being here again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. Appreciate everything.
Anybody else? We'll have about 15 minutes, or everybody can go to bed because they're in their pajamas.
I think next time, Jane, we'll do something like, if you're on camera, we'll put your name in a hat. And out of those, we'll pick it, and then they get like an hour free counseling with you or something like that. But you got to be on camera the whole time.
Perfect. Yep, I love it. And if you don't want me, I have a Starbucks gift card or two.
I'm not in my pajamas. I'm actually in my gym clothes. I was supposed to be going to the gym, but this meetup was really good. So
Awesome.
well, luckily
Good
my
to
gym
hear.
is 24 hours, so maybe I still might go.
There you go. You look like you're refreshed and ready to go. So let's get it
Yeah.
done. Get it
Okay.
done.
Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna head off. So I wanted to thank you guys all. Thanks everyone, and have a great rest of your night.
All right.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks
Take
for being
care.
here, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Have you got a topic for next time, Jane?
You know, I had two, and I was the one was kind of run your business like a business instead of a hobby, which we did originally. And then but I might just continue along this vein with the scope of work, since we're already talking about contractors. So let's just go with a scope of work, and kind of break that down a little bit, and we'll pop up ours, and kind of go over some of the details and what's in it.
So
If
that'll
that's
be
That
cool
next-
with
sounds
everybody.
great.
I'm just writing it down because we have to advertise it. So how to develop your scope of work? Is that what we're doing?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, y'all. Talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
All right.
night. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks
Bye.
everybody for being here.